Hello and welcome to the Jury Roundtable Part 2. I know we had a few complications with everyone making the first one, so we just wanted to do a second part just to get everyone's thoughts and not just some people's thoughts. So you guys can take it away. If you get off track, I'll steer you back on track, but you guys can go in whatever format you guys want.
Okay, well,
All right.
individually, I
Yeah,
I
go ahead, Sherry. You
definitely
lead
I was
this.
gonna say individually, if you want to take them one by one and we just all three chime in on what we think, we can just start with whoever we want to start with Aaron, Eric, or Maddie. I don't care. And then like everybody just take a turn of what they think and maybe compare some notes because I'm still looking for strategy. I'm looking for motive out of them and how the three of them, I still don't understand how the three of them, those three in particular, ended up together at the end. And that's why I
Yeah,
was kind of hoping Casey. I think Jordan, you can help out a lot with that also.
I think Casey can help with a lot of the late game, like end game. I feel like her insight is might be very helpful. I can sort of help with talking about Eric's game a little bit because I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what his game is. Um, I know last night when I was watching, they went Eric, Aaron, then Maddie, so we could follow the same thing. We can just
Okay,
go alphabetical.
sounds good to
Um,
me.
So, because I know you two will have a lot to talk about with Maddie. So, and I probably will have the most to talk about with Eric. So that could just be a good like segue as well.
I agree.
Um, so with Eric, I will just say this, like, no bias whatsoever. Eric and I are like I think of everybody in the org community in the last, 4 or 5 years that I've been a part of it since 2019. He's been one of my closest friends. And I think of everyone that was in this game, I was most excited to play with him because we hadn't had a chance to play in a game in a while. So for me, it starts at the swap. He linked up with me and I sort of was just like, here's all my information. And then I gave him everything. So all of the stuff that happened pre-swap with our original tribes, like he knew all of that before anyone else did. Um, he then I was making sure that he was good with Dave because I knew I wanted to work with both of them. And then I had a good relationship with him. I just knew if we ever got to a tribal and that swap phase, if we ever went to tribal, that I would be good and that he would be good. I think in terms of total game, we look at Eric's game. I think it's very interesting because I think a lot of the conception of perception of his game is that he was always like never like how do I want to put it? He was never really in the driver's seat for most of the game, and he sort of kind of sat back and kind of like let moves happen. I will say like he was always in a spot where there was always going to be someone ahead of him. Like of the Dahlias, he was never somebody that I don't think was at the top of many people's radars. And I think there was a lot of people that just either liked him or trusted him enough. And I think really the only time he was really up for like a vote was the round that memes left. And credit, I not to discredit him, but like I did partially save him that round because he had an ally, but he had somebody that was willing to save him. So I think that like is something like that give him a little bit of credit. And he had the idol. Like if he didn't have the idol, then the whole plan to vote out memes would have went completely different. And he was the one before live night when it was me, Dave, and him on call. We're saying if we can get memes out that round, then that would kind of be a game changer. And I think it had a unique effect on the game because I think memes could have made a very deep run and could have implanted his own game there. I think what I'm looking for with Eric is I want him to kind of tell like some of his strategy and sort of his thoughts. Because here's the thing, and this is going to be a thing for all three jurors. None of them played a perfect merge game at all. There's rounds where they were completely left in the dark or they were blindsided by a vote. So I don't think we're going to, whatever metrics you're going to vote, like use for your vote, just know that none of them played a perfect merge game. Like, just throw that out the window. So I think with me, the reason I'm I'm considering voting for him is not due to the friendship element, which it does play a factor, I won't lie. But I think his positioning, like he never had to do too much because he was pretty much good with a lot of people, except for like a few people here and there, obviously. And he did stick with his people that he was loyal to. And I know some of us are, think that loyalty is sort of this like taboo term in the org community, but there's something to it. Like if you are like, hey, these are gonna be my people, I'm gonna ride with these people, then that's like a valid strategy. And I don't think it's necessarily something we shouldn't give him credit for. But I digress. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
So my thoughts on Eric is this: I do believe he plays a loyal game, and I do agree with you on that. If it comes down to that they all were just playing, because that's what my conclusion is starting to become of the three of them, is that they were playing such a good loyal game to the people they were loyal to, and they were able to keep their threat level low. That's what enabled them to slide into the end. And you're right, it wasn't the perfect merge game. It's maybe not the game that we're all exactly looking to see, compared to maybe Casey or Benner, who I think played really hard games. But at the same time, Eric was really good about getting on call with people. He had a really great social game. And if it comes down to elements, he's got two of them locked down. I mean, he may have not outwitted everybody, but he certainly knew where the votes were going to be and how they were going to land every single round, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say the only rounds he didn't know where the votes were going, I think the only round was Magnolia's, like at least when I was in the game, like Magnolia, and then he did, I'm positive he voted with me at the John vote. It sounded like it was John and then Maddie were the two votes for me to stay. So I don't know, like beyond final 7, it sounds like he was on the right side of the John vote. I think he might have voted incorrectly at the Dave vote, because I think it was Dave, Benner, and then Eric. But then obviously then final 5, final 4, it was very obvious who had to go and how those votes went. But he was on the right side of the vote. He was part of that plan with Corey to leave. Pretty sure he voted for you, Sherry. I'm not positive. I don't remember exactly who voted.
The only person who didn't vote for me, to my knowledge, is Maddie. She threw her vote.
Yeah, and then obviously then he knew of the memes vote. And then I think also then Marvin's vote as well.
How did he find his idol, or how did he get it?
He told me, because when I won my 2 immunities, my immunity clues were the same as where he found it. So he was telling us that it was along like the border of one of the pictures, I think. It was I don't exactly remember, but he was telling me how he found his. But I think if we want to go into some cons with him, is I don't know, besides maybe the memes vote, like how much of any of the votes were really like his plan. I feel like some of the others have sort of, there's maybe like a couple instances of like their votes where they're like the votes were their plan. And I think he might have credit to the memes vote, and that is about it. But like truthfully, with the memes vote, like Eric could have easily gone had I not like told him that his name was out there and there was a huge blindside happening on him.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where like I hesitate leaning towards voting him, because I feel like the reason he kind of like was able to reposition himself was because of like prior connections in the game. And I don't know if any of the people who, like besides Dave, if like any of the people who he didn't know before the game would have like stuck their neck out and been like, hey, you're the vote that route. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that's like one thing with him, is that I feel like his prior connection with me like helped him a lot. Like literally, like he could have gotten voted out instead of you, memes. But I think though, like, to be fair though, like if you have a pre-existing connection, like we've seen it, like there's times where someone before a game, but then like they still don't like work with you. So I think that's a little credit to him of like, yeah, he had like me, or you might have had a connection with Dave early, but like he still had to be, he still had to vote with us. He still could have easily been like, well, I'm gonna screw over Jordan at any point. But I think that is something to factor. But I mean, Aaron had the connection with John, so
Yeah.
that's
Like,
another thing I think of.
Like, I think I'm not faulting him for having like a pre-existing connection, because I think a lot of us had them. I think my thing is like leaning back on it a little bit too much, because I feel like the only people who would have stuck out their neck for him in the game were probably you and Dave, you know? So I feel like that's kind of where I struggle with it. So I kind of like, I guess I need to know more about like who he made relationships with and who was protecting him, more so than just like you and Dave.
Yeah, because I'm in agreement with that. I'm struggling because if he was so tight with you and Dave, why are you two in the jury not sitting with him at the end? Why isn't he protecting the people he's supposed to protect? Is he, I feel like there's some lacking there.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, especially like with my vote, it was sort of like me and John were immediately out there, and then he was just like, well, obviously Eric was gonna vote John. But I don't know if Eric did enough to like make sure that Dave didn't get spooked. Though a lot of that has to do with Aaron, which we will get to Aaron. Because I have some thoughts on
what you're saying to me right now makes it sound like that Eric didn't know how to handle his game. Because if I don't know, it's actually making me not want to vote Eric. Because I feel like, what do I mean? I'm listening to you talk, Jordan, and I respect what you're saying because I think you're pretty much on target. But in my Sherry's world, my perspective, that sounds like to me that he wasn't in control of his game. He went along, he played with the numbers, he found the majority every round. Awesome, great job, because that was better than what I could do. But in the same token, did he protect the people he was supposed to protect? Was he really anywhere, if he was worried about spooking Dave, why wasn't he working with Dave? I mean, so it just makes it more confusing. It just sounds to me like he wasn't even really playing. He was just kind of floating along.
And then to be devil's advocate for that, Aaron couldn't protect Magnolia. Magnolia's on the jury. She also had that connection with John. John went home. Maddie was sort of, she had people she was tight with at times, but then they went home. Like, especially like with Maddie, like, because she would like, now we'll get to it when I talk about Maddie, but like Maddie and I felt like Maddie was like someone I could like go towards the end with, but like, I don't know.
Why did you feel like you could go to the end with her? What made you feel like that?
So not to like kind of spoil what I'll talk about with her, but I feel like when she talked to me, like we didn't talk too much. I think we had maybe like 3 calls the entire game, but each of the times we talked to each other, she really made it seem like that whatever her position was the same position you were at. And she really, like, during that Magnolia vote, she was really the one. She was the first person to bring up the whole thing of like, well, there's 5 of us. Like, if we don't vote out Adalia at the final 9, like the 5 of them can just run the table and they'd be final 5. So she was able to, like, at least with that vote for me, like, plant a little seed of like, oh, like, if we don't make a move here, like, it could be too late. And with my whole game, I was like, well, I got to, find the right times. Cause like, I was trying to like, straddle the, like, not being too close with the Dahlias, but like having side connections on the other side. But then I was like, you know what? Like, Maddie's right. Like, we got to do something to make sure that it's not an all Dahlia final 3. And so I give her credit for that. Like, when we talk about the Magnolia vote, like, the only reason I was comfortable flipping was because she really sold it and to do that. But I think with Maddie though, like at the final 8 with my vote, like she was like, is there someone else we can vote for? Because it was either John and I, but then she didn't really want to say something and she kind of just sort of let me die there. But I don't know.
She used to do that the whole game though, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Is there somebody else we can vote for? I don't know how many times I'm going to say that.
Is there anything other thoughts we have on Eric? Like, what would Eric need to do to potentially get your votes?
Eric would need to answer my questions as honestly as possible, because with all the comparing of notes, I feel like if he tries to which I don't think he would anyway. He doesn't strike me as the type that would lie directly to you. Not like in this situation scenario. I've known Eric for years. I like Eric. I respect him. So I respect all three of them. I am really open to listening. I just feel like Eric, I haven't heard when anybody's come from being voted out, heard anybody say, oh my God, Eric Taylor, that bastard, he helped facilitate my vote. Oh my God, I'm here because of Eric, other than the memes vote. And it always goes back to just the memes vote, which may be better than Aaron and Maddie. And if that's the case, then Eric might actually get my vote. So I guess I just need Eric to be forthcoming with information and not a lot of unnecessary talk. I just want him to get to the point, because he does tend to sometimes go in different directions to when he didn't really do anything. So I need him just to be exact and concise, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think for me, I just need to know like who were his like relationships outside of like you and Dave, because I don't really know that information. And then I need to see some level of like confidence in his game where like he knew what was going on, maybe not all the time, but he knew he had a path to the end. Like it wasn't shaken, you know what I mean? Like that kind of like, I feel like to get to the end, you have to have a path, and kind of if he could lay it out in a way where it was like very calculated and like, yeah, I have a shot to get here and everything, and these are the steps I needed to take. And there may have been some holes in the plan at times, but it worked out in the end. Like I'm here. Like I would respect that a lot.
All right. Do
we do I guess we're gonna do Aaron next.
Yeah. So does anyone want to lead
Okay,
about
so
Aaron?
Aaron, I do want to start with Aaron, if you don't mind. Is that okay with you guys?
Go. Yeah, I started with Eric, so you go for it, Sherry.
Okay, so I suspected, and I don't even know why. Aaron and Eric, I thought were really close. I don't know why. I don't know why I would think that. I don't know if somebody told me that or if it was just something in my brain I created. So that's on me. But yet here they are sitting at the end. So now I'm like, oh, because I don't know how many times I would say that to Jordan means, Aaron and Eric are tight. I think it's because they were always on the same tribe for a long time together. But anyway, I don't know where I got that. So Aaron, to me, I went in the game because I was thinking that I might have a chance to work with Eric. And because I've worked with Eric before. And I wasn't feeling safe with the group I was working with. I felt like we were imploding. And so Aaron, I made a valid point, and I think she did too, to get to know her. And I really liked her impression. I had a really good impression of her. I do feel like though with Aaron, my problem with her is almost personal at this point. It's with something she said on, was it Benner or Casey's vote out? Casey's vote out. At the end where she's giggling about making her list of who people vote out, but it just came off really arrogant. And it just kind of made me think, would I want to vote somebody who's, I was making every genuine effort to get to know her and to be a friend to her. And, I understand her voting me out. That was cool. I get that. That was good gameplay to get rid of me because I was why would you keep me? I totally got that. I was collateral damage. But it was the way she acted, rounds later, like 2 weeks later, and about it. It was still kind of like, hey, I don't know. So, and we had noticed it on a challenge. I think Memes was in the challenge with us, where she was very kind of like, I don't know, there was something about Aaron that kind of triggered me a little bit. And I'm not going to say it was her fault, but the remarks she made about me, 2.5 weeks later kind of irritated me. Yes. So Aaron, I'm walking in thinking she's arrogant. She's going to make claims that possibly, and she's going to run on and on about what she did as far as things that she may or may not have actually done. I don't know what to believe with Aaron because I tried to get to know her and I feel like it was reciprocated. But when she made that remark, it made me think, was she just being fake, disingenuous? So if she was disingenuous on just basic banter, how genuine is she going to be about what she's done in this game and how she got to the end, her position, if that makes any sense at all?
Yeah, it totally does. I don't know, memes, if you want to talk about Aaron, or I can kind of give my little spiel.
Yeah, sorry. Can you? Because I'm like in between eating right now. Sorry.
Oh, go. Okay. So, with Erin, she was someone that I had done like a mini before with, and we were like we worked together in that game, and then towards the end we didn't, just because we were in different positions. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, someone I met this year and all of that. And like early on, like we were in a good relationship. I think she really made me feel very like comfortable working with her and like, you know, to be allies with her. And I genuinely like at certain points felt like Erin was one of my top allies. Um, it was just like during the early parts of the merge, I just noticed that she wasn't as close to me as she was with other people. Like I could tell like, oh, like her and Magnolia were close. I kind of suspected that her and Eric were a little closer than they kind of let on. Um, so she was always someone that I think all of us can agree, like if something didn't go her way, she then was very upset, and then she kind of let that then influence her game. Like I feel like with my vote in particular, she sort of just listened to Benner, because Benner wanted me out after the Magnolia blindside, which anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Benner's reasoning, but she sort of just listened to him just do that, and she kind of used some of that emotions to take me out instead of John, who John screwed her over way more than I screwed her over. And for me at least, I would the one thing I will, if I consider voting for her tomorrow, is if she, at least for my vote, if she could tell me that like that there was strategic merit to the vote versus emotional merit. And I just think, sometimes she just, if the vote didn't go her way or the plan didn't go her way exactly, then there was a problem with you versus like a problem with her. Um, so I'm just curious about that, because I feel like I I sometimes don't like voting for people if like some of their moves were emotionally based versus like strategy based. So I don't know, but I mean, in terms of like physical gameplay, like she it won more challenges than the rest than them individually. She, you know, was very good like in the challenge portion during the tribal phase. She was someone that was, I will agree with what others said last night. Like she was out front. Like you always had to think about what Aaron was doing, um, to kind of formulate your plan. And for whatever reason, like we all just were like, we knew that she was a threat, but like we just never wanted to target her. Like even with the Magnolia vote, it was sort of just like when I was like thinking, oh, let's vote out Magnolia, I was like, oh, because then that could weaken Aaron, and then we could then smooth things over with her. Um, but we never thought of like, oh, let's actually just vote her out. So I will give her a lot of credit for that. But no, I think she has to really, like, for me, she will have to like show me times where some of her game moves were strategic versus were emotional.
That's fair. I kind of see that. The only thing I do like is that she won a lot of challenges. I mean, not that the only thing I like. I like Aaron's person. But I do like the fact that she was a challenge beast this season. These challenges she really did well with. So that does, in my book, give her a point.
Yeah.
The rest she's going to have to like demonstrate for sure.
I think for me, a lot of it comes down to, I think Casey had talked about it a bit after she had gone out, like that Aaron had been coming for her like round after round, and then it would never work out. So I kind of need to know like how, like at what point did she just like realize and kind of stop and be like, this isn't working, I need to reevaluate, readjust, and move forward. Because I feel like if it was at a point where it was a little like late to be doing that and she had already lost a lot from doing so, like I'm not sure if that's really like the best gameplay. Like if you're constantly going for someone and just like keep taking the L and keep taking the L and everything, and just like don't really have any other strategy besides throwing out Casey's name every round. Like I don't know. Like if that.
Yeah, and also on top of it too, like some of the things that Dave was saying last night about like it was sort of like the guilt tripping, which is like I don't know, that gets into like a little bit of the moral aspect of like, do I really want to, reward someone for that? Like I have like a little bit of reservations with that. Because like really, like I guess Dave voted me out, which was a bad move for him because of Aaron's like emotional manipulation, which is like so weird. I don't know. It's a little weird. Like I don't know. Um, but I guess like there's no rules saying you can't do that, And I feel like, when we all talk about like how great like a Dan Giesling is or like all these other people, like they've done the same thing. But I think it's just a little harder when, like especially for me, like it comes at my expense that like that happened. So yeah, so I don't know, call me bitter, I guess, but I'm not super bitter, but it's just interesting, just that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think we focused a lot on like the negative parts of Erin, but I think like a really good positive for her is that she is like just a genuinely like very interesting person to talk to. Like she is super friendly and easy to talk to, and I never felt like when I got on a call with her that she was being like disingenuous with me. Like I always thought like we had a good banter, we had good talks and everything. Like we exchanged information. Like if I would give her information, like she would show a level of trust where like she would give me a piece of information back. Like it wasn't just me sharing information. So I think that she kept a good flow of information throughout the game.
Right. And even at our merge, like when we merged or not merged, when we swapped, like she was still sharing some like information, like even if I already knew the information, because like either Eric or Dave told me, like her willingness to like share like certain pieces of information, whether it be the full truth or not, she was very good at like sharing like kind of like key information that make you trust her. And I feel like she probably did that with a lot of people. And I think I don't want to like discredit her game or anything if I'm been coming off that way. Like I think overall she played a very good game. So I think she did a lot of good things. Like the challenge performances were amazing. And I said like, there were a lot of times throughout the merge where like, oh, we can't vote Aaron out. And it's sort of like, why can't we? Like we never did, like why did we choose Magnolia over Aaron or Magnolia over some of the other Dahlias? And it was because, well, she would, I don't know. We just never did because we just were comfortable enough with her still in the game, even if we were blindsiding her, So I don't know. She has some pros. Like the pros are definitely out there. And I think if I had to like wager who might win tomorrow, like she might be at the best odds. So
yeah. And I don't think we discredited her. I just didn't want it to like seem like we were dragging on about the negatives because I feel like we focused on like the positives with Eric and then we moved on to the negatives with Eric. So I feel like we focused on the negatives with Aaron. So we'll just like move on to the positives and everything too. So
right. And I think mainly why I think we started with the negatives was just because of like sharing sort of like what her role in our vote offs were, like her role in it. And it seems from my interpretation of Sherry and then like my own personal, it was a little negative. But I think with Eric, kind of like what Sherry said was like, I don't think anyone walked into the jury being like pissed at what Eric did to them.
Yeah.
But I think though, I think a lot of it was because Aaron had a lot of influence on certain votes, especially like at least early on in the merge, like with my vote off. I mean, she was part of that plan as well. I think she probably had a little bit of what to do with the Corey vote of like at least getting the votes onto him. So she had some influence, and second half of the merge, it seems like she was really focused on getting Casey out. And she might have been kind of blinded a little bit in that regard. But I think though she did play very strongly. I think we just started negative because that was like kind of the first things that we thought of. But
Yeah, and I think it was good we started with the negatives, just because I feel like with Eric, I feel like the negatives are kind of not as glaring, but with Aaron, like I feel like whenever people would come in, they'd have like a very like, oh, she got me, but like it would be like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like it was
yeah,
like
and I think
like a
oh, sorry.
negativeness around it. So
Yeah, and I think that's another thing to segue, because I think you said something good about Eric, is that I think there's a lot of his game that's still a mystery, but I think with Aaron, I think we all have a very good idea of how she played. And I want to give her credit for that as well, because like we all knew exactly how she was playing, and like, so
like,
I'll give her a lot of credit for that as well. Like Aaron
it-
was not like a closed book. Like you could, you had an idea every round what she wanted.
yeah, and I think it's a pro for both of them, because like with Eric, I feel like he'll have a lot of things where he can be like, well, I did this, and kind of like showcase things that we don't know. But Aaron can also be like, oh, well, I did this and y'all knew it and nobody took a shot. So I feel like it's kind of a pro for both of them. Like, because Eric might have things that we don't know about that he can kind of be like, bam, there's something. And then Aaron's kind of more just like, y'all knew what I was doing. Like, I was an open book and everything, which I think that she did it in a very smart way. Like, I feel like she gave enough information, but she didn't like overshare her hand and get messy about it. So
Yeah. Maybe since I asked the same question about Eric, like what does Aaron need to show in her speech tomorrow or during her jury questioning that would either solidify your vote or make you switch to vote her at Final Tribal tomorrow?
I think for me, I need to see where she didn't get hyper fixated on like one thing happening. Like I would want to see like a kind of fluidity in the game where she wasn't just like stuck on one idea and that was the only idea for a good chunk of her game. Like I would want to see like where she was able to kind of like break off and be like, okay, I can do this. Like I can move about the game and not be so rigid.
I don't know, Sherry, what are your thoughts? So what would Aaron need to do tomorrow to have you consider voting for her?
She needs to bring it down a little bit with her arrogance, so just a little bit. I want to see her be a little more humble, and I want her to see her credit the moves that she made, have confidence in the moves she made, because it sounds like she's going to get a lot of shit about some of the moves she made. I want her to come in and be a little, just to be, I just want to understand her game a little better. I agree. That's kind of what Meme said. I don't want to know that she was just fixated on Casey the whole game until she finally got Casey. If she comes in and claims that to be her biggest move of the game, that could be something that sways, it's going to probably, I'm going to have a few questions for that, but I don't know. I wanted to know about the whole game, not just one player. So I want to know where she was really at.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even listening to you guys, I still don't have a good picture. Because I agree, she was a very nice girl. She was a really, really good girl. I like talking to her. I gave her the $20. Well, I had to pick somebody.
That $20 well. So, all right, are we ready to move on to Maddie then? Because I think you two have a lot you could probably say about Maddie's game since you played with both of them for a majority of the game. So, with Maddie. So, are we ready to move on to Maddie?
All right, go ahead, Jordan, or go ahead, Neves.
Yeah, I think with Maddie, a lot of it for me is I think that she is a really strong player. Like whenever we were on our original tribe, she was definitely someone who you could talk to and kind of like get an idea of what she wanted. She was very fluid on that tribe, like she was open to ideas and everything. And like right off the bat, she was someone that I wanted to connect with and kind of like work with. And then as the game kind of unfolded, like we swapped, I feel like that kind of like she kept that for the first vote, and then from there she kind of just like spiraled a little for me. And like I don't know in my eyes if she ever really like recovered until like the merge. Because it like I think the swap was very like overwhelming for her and everything. And then she had a lot going on in real life. So for me, I feel like she started out really strong in my eyes, and then it kind of like died off towards like the middle and even like the beginning merge parts. Because like me and her would talk like every day, and then all of a sudden like communication just stopped because of her being busy and everything. So I'm like, I don't really know where her game lies after a certain point, you know?
Sherry, do you want to go next on your thoughts on Maddie?
Sure. So Maddie, I don't think I really connected with her the first few days, but I empathized with her. I think she was going through a crisis. And I think it was her cat was very ill. And so, but as the game moved forward and things got easier for her, I would agree with Meme. I'll never forget her saying this on the swap tribe. She told me that she thought she was closer to John, Corey, and Memes than I was. And she still stood by it, but she really felt like she was closer with John and Corey than I was. But she felt like because I had shared money with Jordan, with Memes, and we got the idol, that made us closer. So she was really, I think that was really worrisome to her when we were on the other tribe, because I never confirmed that. But then she was always real quick to remind me, but Jordan did tell me the minute you did that, I've known since early on, blah, blah, blah. And, I always felt like she was always planting seeds, Jordan, or when I say Jordan, I mean Meme, sorry. I always felt like she was planting seeds slightly. And I don't know if she was doing it intentionally or not, to whether I should be trusting Jordan and John. And I don't know. I never could figure that out. It was just weird conversation sometimes with her about that. But she used to swear, and I don't know did she do this with you, Memes? I'm really curious. Did she tell you when we were on the tribes, the swap tribe, that you were her number one too? Did she ever say it to you, or did she say?
She never told me that she was that I was her number one. Like we had an alliance of me, her, and John on the original tribe, but we never like me and her never really were like, oh, we're ride or dies to the end. Like we were just
no, she never said that but that she told me we were, her and I.
Yeah, she never said that to me.
And she didn't vote for me on my vote out. Like she was at the airport. I was trying not to stress her out. I think I'd sometimes forget she would take certain things literally sometimes. And that was my fault, because I would say things and then I'd realize I'd be like, no, I'm not talking about you, Maddie. I'm just venting, I guess. But I felt like Maddie, I don't know where her and I were at the beginning of the game other than friends. I definitely like her. Great girl. Oh, awesome. I really do love Maddie. On the tribe swap side, I don't know where she was thinking of landing, but her and I had built a rapport by that point. And then people all of a sudden started sticking her and I as a duo, which I don't know why. Because when I first went to tribe swap, I was more close with Memes. And then, she started interviewing more jobs, and the whole V vote really it was a good move. But I mean, I felt like that still wasn't her. I felt like the whole swap thing was always somebody else's move. I felt like the first part of the game, it was always somebody else's move. Because Amanda was John.
I think
Esteban was just memes.
I think that though, like, a good thing about Maddie was that, like, even whenever she would get painted as like a duo with someone, the person in her duo was always someone who was really out there and like open. And I think that she got a lot of information from you and Casey. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think she would have made it to the spot that she is if she didn't get some sort of information out of the people who were protecting her. So I don't
Well,
think
that's what I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
with her game. I feel like, because I always felt like there was always something maybe not quite ringing true with Maddie when I would talk to her. Sometimes there was question marks. Like Chrissy had told me, Maddie told her about the idol that I had an idol. She came right up to me and was like, so I'm not supposed to be telling you this, but did Maddie really do that? How else did she find out? Unless you told Marvin and V and they told Chrissy. I never did backtrack that because I was just more like, whatever. So, great. I don't care. I don't have the idol.
I think for Maddie, I feel like she aligned herself with the right people at the right time. Like, I don't think there was ever a position where people were looking at Maddie and were like, she needs to go. Like, she needs to be the one who is.
Yeah, but was it just because she was playing a lay low game? Or was it because,
I mean, I don't
people saw her as a pawn? Is she a pawn? Because I don't
think she was necessarily like a pawn, because I don't think, like, I think like towards like the end game, whenever I was in the game, like she wasn't around as much. But like in the beginning, like I don't think she ever just like sat there and let something happen. Like, I think she gave her voice in it. And I think the only reason why in the middle game it kind of got a little blurry was just because of life. Like, life happens.
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree with all that. I say that, but I'm asking, so she had a great beginning of the game. I had an awesome pre-merge game. I had an awesome pre-merge game, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a great merge game, because I don't give a shit about her pre-merge game. I'll be straight up with you. I was there for her pre-merge game. I know what she didn't and didn't do. It wasn't that impressive. And that was her middle part of her game. And I understand it was because of real life. And I know she's a great player. I agree with all that. So it falls back to this. At merge, at what point did she start to play, or was she just a pawn and basically brought to the end as a token, as somebody they thought they could beat, as, a pawn? Because, just because you played a little bit of a great game in the first 3 rounds, which was that really her? Because like I said, I'm going back over the votes. John wanted Amanda out so he could get her 6 coins. You wanted Esteban out. Maddie, in the very first round, didn't care who went out because she was unavailable. So I don't even see that as a great first game. She had a great social game. Yes, indeed. But I'm still looking with Maddie. I see absolutely zero strategy, and I see her as a pawn. So for Maddie to get my vote, she's got to prove that she wasn't a pawn. And I'm totally open to that because I wasn't there past my vote. And means you weren't there the next round after that. I want to know, like, did she know I was going home? Because that was another thing. I'm looking to see what she was being honest about, what she was being strategic about. Because she told me she didn't know. And that was one of the biggest phrases of hers. I don't know. Or who do you think we could vote instead? She would never, she put herself in the position where, and she played like some kind of game where you couldn't ever say, well, Maddie said your name. Because Maddie was very careful about not targeting people. So by not targeting people ever in the game, to me, that means, she might have voiced her opinion here and there, but did she? I don't know what she did beyond that. I'm curious if she can prove to me that she voiced her opinion and had actual made moves and wasn't just dragged to the end. Maddie's got my vote. I'm dead. I think Maddie can do that because I'm going to ask her point blank. I want to know, because my perspective of the first part of her game till merge, she wasn't playing a strong game. Not yet.
I can then talk a little bit about her post and her merge game. As I mentioned earlier with her, like she did a good job of like really convincing me that the position that I was kind of formulating wasn't as strong as it was. And like when it came to the Magnolia vote there, like she really like sold that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how much of the Magnolia vote she wants to credit herself, because I feel like it was more of a collaborative vote, like with especially with like John and Casey. Um, and then especially like with me, like because I could have easily like ratted out that plan, but she made it seem so comfortable with me that I was like, I can't, fuck, because I was like, I can't fuck these people over. Like I gotta, I'm gonna lose trust with Maddie if I do this vote, and I can, repair my relationship with Dave and Eric later. But I think she just was very like, if you got on a call with her, I felt like she was awesome on calls. Like that's just at least my experience. Like, and she really like would open up and be vulnerable with me, because like right when we had our calls, like she was in like, her transition stages with like getting the job and all of that. And we just had some really like just like personal deep calls, and I really appreciate that. I think I agree with you, Sherry. I want to just see sort of what was the path towards the end, because I feel like it's kind of unclear what exactly was her path. And I feel like my envisioning game of hers is that she always wanted to make sure there was at least someone ahead of her that was a target. And I played a game like that before, and I made it to the end and I got second place. And it's a valid strategy of like a shield strategy. But at a certain point, you gotta have to like, really like say like put your foot down, being like, this is like who needs to go. And like this is, if you're kind of like playing like I don't really care who goes, or you're not really trying to spearhead votes, then like you don't have anything to kind of show us that you have something. But I do want to credit her for, at least with my relationship with her, and again, I think a lot of us too, like we always felt like, oh, we want to take Maddie to the end. And I want her to like tell us, like, was that because she didn't really know what she wanted to do at the end? Or was it an intentional strategy of, I want to make everyone feel like they can take me to the end, and then like flip it around on them when it gets a final tribal, and I can, make my case and be like, I made you all believe that you can beat me at the end, and look, I'm here, and all of you are sitting over there. Like, if she said something like that, that would be very influential in my decision making.
Yeah.
Absolutely. After hearing, I don't know, I don't understand what's going on, I need to know that she did. And she proves that, she's got my vote. Because I would really love to vote for Maddie.
Yeah. It seems like out of everybody, she was probably the one that was like left out of the least amount of votes. Like, because it seems like she was probably only left out of the John vote, I'm guessing. Like,
Yeah, I want to know also like too with like my vote, because she voted with me, but like all indications were that she was closer to John than she was with me. So I'm like kind of curious why she at least voted with me on that vote. And if like she knew that, like if she knew that I was going but voted for me anyway, like why, at least for my vote. But I feel like votes she wasn't a part of. I mean, I don't know, the whole Corey vote's still like a weird vote. But
yeah, like a lot of people were left out of that. Like
Did
I
she
mean,
know
I
about
wanted to
the
do
Corey?
it. I literally was telling my project I wanted to do something like that, but then the Dahlia's never included me, and that's why ever since I was doing my own fucking thing.
Did she know about the Corey vote?
Then that's where I'm like unclear, because I knew like John was to
John
an extent
at like
but...
the last second, but like I'm not even sure who all knew about that. So
I remember it was Marvin, Eric, and Aaron, and then someone else I think voted that way.
Dave.
Dave, yeah. I don't know.
So I don't know if she was included in that, but like I can't like I feel like that's one of the votes where it's like hard to like fault her for not being included because so few people were in on that.
I'm just asking because I'm curious. I don't really expect that she was because she was on a flight.
Yeah. But like
Or she was with her girlfriend, something. I don't know.
I don't know. But
Did she know I was going home? I don't know. Did she know I was going home, Jordan or Memes?
I think she did.
I think she did too, but I think
I think
it was a little unclear because that was one of the rounds we talked, and I think partially why she was okay with you at least going was because for whatever reason, either I don't know, there was something with her about like with you, like Sherry, like with you and her, and like you were throwing her under the bus, and she was like, I don't know what she thinks I'm throwing her under the bus, but I was like, I don't know why Sherry would do that. Like
yeah,
that
I think
that whole vote, like that her involvement with it, like I don't think she necessarily was like spearheading it, but I think sort of when the name was out there, then she was just like totally okay with it. But I think though she had intentions of throwing her vote.
What does she
yeah.
mean? I'm throwing her
think-
under the bus. What is she talking about?
I
I think
don't
I
know. I don't
think it was-
remember.
I think it was because of the round before where you had gone in the chat and were like, "Oh, I'm just a vote. I'm just this and that." I think she took that to heart. I don't think she wanted to vote you out, and I don't think she wanted you out that round.
But
because
how is
she-
that throwing her under the bus?
Like, I think it was.
I don't remember.
I think
knew
that
there was
whole
something
thing
that was discussed.
messy. Like, I think that whole thing just became a big, huge mess, and people didn't know who.
Did y'all lie to her about something Means?
I didn't lie to her.
I'm gonna
I mean,
find out and ask her.
This was from like she was telling me from what other people were telling her. I never even brought it up. And then even on that vote, I was like, I don't know who's like telling you this or like what the extent was,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Again, though, it could have been stuff that people were telling her to like kind of like drive the wedge against you guys potentially. So
I'll
it probably
find
wasn't
out.
even her
Now
fault.
I got a good question to ask her.
I think it might have just been you saying you were at the bottom. She might have felt like you were throwing her under the bus about that.
What would that
Like,
have to do
because
with her? It was
because-
not about her.
Yeah.
Everything I said in that chat had nothing to do with Maddie. It wasn't about Maddie. It was about me and the way I felt. Y'all wanted me to vote with you, but you were giving me nothing. You guys kept throwing me under the bus. I know damn well if our tribe had gone to tribal one more time, I would have been voted out and you would have been like, yeah, I got the idol. Let's do it. I'm fairly certain the only reason we worked at all when we worked together the first round was just to have an easy vote. When going into merge with you guys, especially after that round, which it accomplished what they wanted, where you choose who's safe and not. And that had nothing to do with Maddie, and that's being narcissistic. That is the definition of narcissism. And if that's how she felt because of me saying I felt at the bottom with you guys, and I was really talking because John had just come at me about saying something about his idol to somebody. And, everybody already knew about his damn idol. It was not a secret. I think it really pissed me off. And if she took it personally, that's on her, but don't put it on me. And if that's really what she thought, she's definitely not going to get my vote because anything I said in that chat, I didn't say shit to her about her. It was not directed towards her in any way. It was directed towards everybody. I was saying, I know where I stand in this group. You guys have kind of made it clear because actions speak louder than fucking words. And that's how I felt. And you can deny whatever. I so did not want to work with you guys at Merge. Maddie would have been the only one, but I was done with the whole mess. I just would have loved to have been able to start fresh. Y'all made me feel like shit, truthfully. And that's what that was about. Because after all those fucking tribals, helping you with Marvin, helping John with Amanda, helping everybody with this, it was just like, I'm so fucking over these people. It really was like that.
I'm gonna say we have lots of time to talk about this at the reunion tomorrow.
Ah,
But if you guys have like last like thoughts about anyone, or like if you I guess you guys kind of asked it after each person, like what do they need to do to get your vote or anything like that. But yeah, if you have any last thoughts, then
Yeah,
give them
I'm
and
just
then we'll
gonna
wrap up.
please say what she needs to do for me and then go. But I think that for me, Maddie needs to show a confidence in her game. I think she needs to show that she did things with intention and that she was someone who was not just sitting there waiting to be dragged along. I want to see like where she took initiative and kind of like had her shield, but she also had her sword ready at the same time. So that's what I kind of need from her. And yeah.
I will say just as a blanket thing, just to talk about all three as sort of like a wrap up here, then Sherry can wrap us up more. I think what I want all the jurors to think about tomorrow is kind of think of what you would want as our winner and just use that criteria. Don't do like a group think thing. Cause I know from watching recent seasons of Survivor, I feel like we all want to like have like a near like unanimous decision on who should win and like picking the right winner. Like you need to pick the right winner for how you want the game to be played and like how you want to vote. Like what I feel like is worthy of a win is different than you memes and you Sherry, and it'll be different from me and Benner, me and Casey, me and Dave. So I think everyone should vote their conscience and vote how they want to vote and not how the group wants to vote. And I think for me tomorrow, I'm going to do a lot of listening and I'm going to do a lot of note taking because I'm just very curious on some of their games because I don't feel like anyone out of the group played necessarily a flawless or fantastic all-time type of game, but I feel like all of them have a lot of pros and they all have a lot of cons. And I just think tomorrow, probably who may win this season is the person that is the most confident and the person that is, willing to answer our questions and not BS us or try to suck up to us. And just really sell their game. Because at this point, like if you can sell your game better than the other two, then that might be what it takes to win. So I'm excited for tomorrow because I feel like there's a lot of different direction that this vote can take. I've an idea of who might win, but that's not necessarily to say that person
who do you
will win.
think's going to win?
I think from hearing yesterday and then sort of some of the sentiment, I feel like people might want to vote Aaron, but I don't know. If I had to like place a bet, I would place my bet on Aaron, but it's sort of like, even odds with all of them. I don't feel like I think necessarily like we should like any one of them has like a far better chance than the rest. But I don't know. I think she might be leading the pack. But I mean, again, though, if she goes to final tribal tomorrow and like, only says that her big move is getting Casey out, like what else was there to her game? And, but then again, like Eric could easily come in tomorrow and be like, yeah, I didn't know what the heck was that. These were my allies, but then that was it. And like kind of leave some people that he didn't talk to cold, and then with Maddie, if Maddie can't really say like a move or two that was like her own, and then it's like, so there's a lot that can happen. So yeah.
I would say I had a really good time playing. I'm happy with it. Doesn't, ultimately either one of the three wins. I would be like, yeah, that was a good game. I could see all three of them winning. So with that being said, I do wish them all three the best of luck. I think they all earned their way to the end, and may the best person win tomorrow.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay, I'll wrap up the live here, but again, thank you so much for attending part 2 of this roundtable.